While the injury news around the Chicago Bears has been mainly bad for a long time now, we actually got some good news yesterday, and that is that Ozzy Trapilo could be back sooner than expected. Now, we need to be careful. That does not mean that he's going to be back by week 4 or anything like that, and no return date has been given yet, but it does seem like Ozzy Trapilo could be ahead of schedule, and what that means for the Chicago Bears, we're going to talk a little bit about that. First, we'll talk about Grady Jarrett's comments on Caleb Williams and his command of the offense, and how Jordan Vandenberg is giving the offensive line working with the first team defense, and what that could mean for the Chicago Bears season. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go to get into this content for today, y'all, and we're going to start off with this one. Ozzy Trapilo. A lot of people have been talking about Ozzy Trapilo's return. I myself put together an episode that I never got to release because of news and stuff dropping over comparing Ozzy Trapilo's injury to other players that had the same injury or similarly over the last 5 years, and the return that they have there. And with him suffering the ruptured patellar during the wild card game against the Green Bay Packers in January, the concern was that not only could it alter his career, which seems like that's not going to be the case, but also how he'd return and when he'd return from this. The thought process was he's going to miss the majority of the 2026 season. But Albert Breer came out and said this, who was in attendance of Chicago Bears training camp, and said this, might be back sooner than expected. Now, it's very vague from Albert Breer in regards to that. And when somebody's expected to miss the majority of a season, and you said could be back sooner than expected, what does that mean? Does that mean week 10? Does it mean week 8? Does that mean week 6? What does that mean as far as the return being sooner than normal? So there's questions now for that. Right now, of course, Braxton Jones seems like he has a command over that left tackle position if he's going to be healthy. If not, Jedrick Wills, Theo Benedict have been players that we've talked about there. Even Kiran Amegadjie has gotten some reps with the first team offense for that position, right? Braxton has missed the last several practices, so now that puts that question in regards to that one. So now you look at it and say this. If Ozzy Trapilo is back sooner than expected, and at this point this season, what does that look like for him? Now, for him to miss the season, it does probably mean that there's going to be a ramp-up period. He's probably not going to jump right back into the starting lineup. It means that he may serve as depth for the majority of this season, even if he does play, right? It depends on when you come back. Because in my mind, if things are looking good for the Chicago Bears and they have a winning season up until that point, let's just say he comes back week 10, right? I'm just saying that as a whole number to say. If he comes back week 10, do you want to use the final 7 games to maybe take a chance that he's not going to be back up to snuff or things like that and just work him in on some snaps so that way you get a jump start before the 2027 season? I don't know what the Chicago Bears are going to do. That's ultimately going to come down to what the Bears coaches, what the training staff is seeing when he does make his return, those type of things. And ultimately, that's what we'll see. So, it's good to hear, though, that Ozzy Trapilo could be ahead of schedule because I tell you what, it looked pretty bleak in regards to, the turnaround. Now, I'll say this, where I was initially concerned that even when he did return, he could not return up into his former level of play. But when you really look at the history of that injury recently, maybe a decade plus down the road, it wasn't as much. But over the last decade, players that have that injury, specifically offensive line players, they pretty much return back to who they were for the most part. And with Ozzy being as young as what he was as well, it adds to that you think that recovery process is going to look pretty good for Ozzy Trapilo. So not too worried about it, but good to hear some type of positive news in regards to that. But then also some other positive news. Jordan Vandenberg continues to get work with the first team offense, right? And I want to talk about this and what this means for the Chicago Bears. Now, it was expected for him, to be far down that depth chart. When you look at the Bears and them adding the Kentavious Street and Neville Gallimore as depth, and it just put more space between the starting lineup and the rotation and Jordan Vandenberg being, in the actual rotation. But as it stands right now, one thing that we're hearing right now is that the sixth round rookie looks really damn good. And the question becomes about, it's not even, I'm not even going to put start, even though he's been practicing with the first team defense. I'm not going to put that on him. But if he becomes a real rotational player for you, and from what we've heard, him going up against Darnell Wright, going up against Joe Tooney, he's giving players work, right? And so, in coming up against that, what does that then mean for your rotation? I say this: it puts you well ahead. Like Jordan Vandenberg, as I've said before, is a player that almost perfectly encapsulates what Dennis Allen wanted this defense to change this year. Adding more speed, adding more functionality, better tackling, right? He does all that stuff. So if you look at you getting an actual rotational snaps from a player in year one as a round 6 rookie, it means that you're getting cheap rotational production because it's very cheap for a 6-round rookie. You're getting more flexibility with your veterans. You can keep those guys fresh with, again, for the Bears defensive line. You want to keep those guys as fresh as possible. You have that more interior depth. We already think that Neville Gallimore is going to be an important part of the depth, replacing that Andrew Billings role. But Javon Dexter, Grady Jarrett, if you're able to keep those guys fresh as well, especially a veteran like Grady Jarrett who was suffering injuries last year, that's good. Keeping fresh bodies throughout games, especially if your defensive line is performing well, that says a lot about your team, and that puts a lot of pressure on opposing offenses because, hey, you're keeping guys fresh. So if you're able to rotate those guys in and out, what Jordan Vandenberg's job right now should be is to seriously make his defensive coaches think, well, damn, should we be playing him over a guy like Lynch? Should we be playing him over Kentavious Street? Because this guy is for sure part of our future. And even if there's some learning curve or little bumps in regards to that he has to get over, like, look at what he's able to do. He's cooking out there. So I think development without desperation is the thing that's really big here for the Chicago Bears and what the position that Jordan Vandenberg could put them in. And that's great. And this is another player that Dennis Allen can continue to experiment as well in that. So I want to ask this question to you guys. Yeah, I get it. It's training camp right now. Experimentation does happen in training camp. It would be unfair of me to act like experiments don't happen in training camp because they do. And it may not be this huge thing that you look at during the season, especially as we know for this Bears team, they're slower to trust kind of rookies early on. But I tell you this, if Jordan Vandenberg does seem ready, I think it means a lot for this Bears team, and it means a lot for the ceiling rising of this team as well. Because if you get that guy in games early and he develops over the course of the season, that could be a fun one for the Chicago Bears. Moving on from that, Grady Jarrett had comments in regards to Caleb Williams, and he said this. As far as Caleb, I think it's just command of the offense. It's command of the huddle, self-confidence. See how far he's come in a year's time has been super impressive, and just the hunger to continue to work and get better every day. We are hearing the same things from multiple people in regards to Caleb Williams. We're hearing it from the coaching staff. We're hearing it from his teammates. We're hearing it from the outside media, and that is that Caleb Williams really seems like he's come into training camp ready to make that next step as a quarterback. And that means a lot for a team that needs that, that's trying to make the next step as a team themselves as well and get over that hump. The MVP talk, all that type of stuff, it'll handle itself, right? That's not what I mean to talk about here. I mean to talk about just him running and being the play caller for this team and what that better poise means for this team, what that means for Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, Rome Odunze, what that means for the wide receivers like Caden Davis who are out on the outside looking in, the Jade Walkers, the Xavion Thomases, like those guys. When you have a quarterback and play caller, and Ben Johnson in this case, right? And they are an extension of each other. They see the game the same way. They understand what needs to happen, how to execute it, how to put each other in best positions, those type of things. It ups the ceiling and the floor for your team as a whole. It ups the expectations of that. We keep hearing the same thing. Now it's training camp. It's great. We're going to get to see real live games here sooner rather than later, and we'll get to see what we feel about this Bears team and the command that Caleb Williams has over the offense. But I tell you what, it's good to hear these things now. We got a game coming up on Saturday, y'all. We go against the Cleveland Browns on Saturday, y'all. Let's be clear with this. Again, the Bears play football on Saturday. This Saturday, we are 4 days away from Chicago Bears football. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that says about this team? That says that this is like we are going to get to see, and I get it, we're not going to see a lot of the starters, but just seeing that blue and orange take that field, and it's at Soldier Field at that. It has me excited, man. We're C-Ball days coming soon, man. As C-Dub says a lot, we're going to get there. All right, moving on from that. Another pick, right? We're talking about picks like Ozzy Trapilo and him shining. It seems like Ruben Hippolyte is set up for a redemptive season. We're seeing things and hearing notes that Ruben Hippolyte is looking really good in regards to it. Adam Hogue said this. Ruben Hippolyte has had his best practice, and he was very active on defense. That came from Adam Hogue. We already heard Ryan Poles talk about that he feels like Ruben Hippolyte, Shamar Turner both have just as high ceilings as Colston Leveling and Luther Burden, what they did last year, right? There was a lot of buzz about Ruben Hippolyte coming out of college, especially after he ran the 4.340. We all know that. We all heard that. But for what it's worth, Dennis Allen has talked a lot about adding speed and tackling to this team. So Hippolyte is still a fit for what Dennis Allen has and what he can bring and what Dennis Allen wants on this defense. The question becomes about, I've said this a lot. I said this last season. I said this during the offseason. The 2025 draft class for the Chicago Bears with Luther Burden, Colston Leveling, Kyle Monangai was great, right? Now you got to have guys like Shamar Turner, Ruben Hippolyte continue to show what they can bring for this team. I was saying Zay Frazier there for a while, but Zay Frazier's out of football now for what happened. So I think when you look at it, a linebacker with 4.3 speed is already ridiculously enough. For how Dennis Allen likes to sometimes moves defensive backs to the outside linebacker position, you can have speed to where you don't even have to do that and overload a side. But he has to be dependable in run defense. He has to have better consistency. He's also going to have pass coverage as well because Dennis Allen likes his linebackers to have pass coverage. There's a long line of linebackers now ahead of Ruben Hippolyte. You have, of course, our starters in TJ Edwards. You got DeMarco Jackson out there. You got Devin Bush. You got new acquisitions in Keyshawn Elliott. You got the returning Jack Sanborn. Noah Sewell still on this list. So there's a lot of names in that linebacker room. And I wonder if now we're going to see the athleticism, the speed, those type of things for Ruben Hippolyte maybe separate himself. He has preseason. I just talked about the preseason game coming up on Sunday. You have that to add some functionality to your team and figure it out. But, injuries in the linebacker room are going to open up opportunity, especially now in preseason. TJ Edwards is still not 100% healthy. He may not play a lot, if at all, in preseason. So now the question becomes for Ruben Hippolyte, can he go from a forgotten draft pick that many people just aren't talking about anymore to at least a rotational defender in one summer? And then there's a lot of career left for him, so everything doesn't have to be determined just in this year. But I tell you, if Ruben Hippolyte can find a way to be a rotational piece with the depth that we have in this linebacker room and just find your niche, that's usually what it comes down to. Find the thing that you do well and you can do repeatedly. What the team can bet on you to bring consistently to help this team win football games. Once you find that thing and you make that your niche, then that's where you can expand. That's where the role. That's where they're trying more for you. So if I'm Ruben Hippolyte, I'm coming into this preseason with this mindset. I'm coming for a starting spot. Doesn't mean he's going to get it, but I'm coming for a starting spot. And you have to have that mentality. You have to have that mindset if you're going to want to stand out in a team that has this much depth at the linebacking spot. So we'll see, right? And so, you got Noah Sewell's out with injury right now. Keyshawn Elliott is also out with injury right now. Noah Sewell's also out. Like, you have these guys that are there. Like, there's so many opportunities now for you and a guy in Ruben Hippolyte that the Bears thought highly enough of you and your potential fit in Dennis Allen's system to draft you where they did. Now go out and show it. So I love it. I hope that Ruben Hippolyte and Shamar Turner have really bounced back years where people start realizing, like, no, we got us some players here in this one. Don't overlook the rest of the 2025 draft class because the story ain't done being told and written on those guys. They each had injuries last year. Let's see what they can go out and show this season. I want to hear from you guys on this one, though. Hearing that Ruben Hippolyte starting to string together some good practices, does that give you any more faith on his ability to come out here and provide some depth, at least for the Chicago Bears? Let me know that part down below. With that said, I want to take a closer look. Now that we have the details from Darnell Wright's contract, right? I want to take a look at this contract and what it kind of helps the Chicago Bears do. Of course, for those that don't remember, 4 years, $116 million with $93 million guaranteed. But the structure does matter in there, right? According to notes that we've heard on it, he received a $42.18 million fully guaranteed at signing, while other guarantees are vesting in other years, right? So they did something that's interesting in this. There's no void years in Darnell Wright's contract. That means that they didn't artificially push money into fake future contract seasons just to lower the immediate cap hits. That shows a huge belief in Darnell Wright, right? It also does indicate that there is zero dead money remaining with Darnell Wright's contract. They can cut him in 2031 with no dead money remaining on that contract. So, again, that's just kind of a thing that you want to put in. It just shows points in it. I think that the bigger message in Darnell Wright's contract structure says this. Ryan Poles drafted him. The Bears developed him. They paid him. And they didn't get over the top with the contract. They made it pretty straightforward in regard to it. That's how you handle somebody that you want to be a foundational player for your team. And they paid him like a foundational player. The Bears fans that keep complaining about Darnell Wright, anybody saying you don't pay that for a right tackle, I don't think really get and understand how good Darnell Wright is. He is not just one of the best right tackles in the game of football. He's one of the best tackles overall in the game of football. And so you look at each of these years of his contracts become fully guaranteed on the third day of the 2027 league year. So there you go on that one. This shows that the Bears, they aren't expecting Darnell Wright to take a drop off. Now, for those that ask, like, if the worst were to happen, Darnell Wright were to suffer a major injury, any type of step backs, anything like that, yeah, it could get dangerous. But that's the thing that you play with contracts in the NFL. There's always a chance that it can get and become, a little bit more tenuous on you if injuries or stuff stacks. You don't pay players to be injured. You pay them to play football games. So there's always going to be a little bit of inherent risk in that. But I think things are going to be perfectly fine, and I think they'll be okay, and things are going to be good. To end the topic, to end the episode, I should say today, the Bears, it's been rumored that the Bears should trade former Super Bowl champion with the Philadelphia Eagles, Brandon Graham. Now, I already know because, again, I know this community. I've been in the Chicago Bears community my whole entire life. All my almost 40 years on this planet, I've been a Chicago Bears fan. Never rooted for another team, never spent time for another team. I've been there through the heartbreak, through the triumph. We haven't had much triumph in my time, Bears, but through everything, I've been here, right? So I do understand that. And with somebody who's born in 1988, meaning that he's only, 2 years younger than me, and I'm about to turn 40, that shows you what it is. Adding depth. And I think that's the most functional thing. He spent all his career with the Philadelphia Eagles so far right now. And this is a guy that when you look at it, of course, he had 3 sacks last year. Matter of fact, each of the last 3 years, since 2023, he had 3, 3.5, and 3 sacks. But he just had an 11-sack season in 2022 where he did play all 17 games. Now, this is one of those things that start popping up on the rumor mill, stuff like that, because it does make sense. The Bears, the defensive line is something that keeps being talked about with the Chicago Bears. It's always going to be talked about with the Bears, right? And right now, where the Bears are, like the Xavier Woods signing and stuff like that, you're most likely just to be adding veterans, complementary veterans that help add depth, right? And when you look at it, he's 38 years old, but he still played 15% of the total snaps on defense, meaning that he's more of a specialist. You put him in kind of on clear pass rotation downs, if that ends up being the case. And we know that Ryan Poles is still looking heavily at the defensive line. Everything that we've heard coming out of training camp is that when Ryan Poles has been watching the defensive line portions of it really close. And I'm sure the team overall is looking at thinking, do we need to make a bigger move? Do we feel confident in the swings? Or do we think that we need to add some more supplement here to what we have going on here? And that's it, especially when you also look at injuries. Montez Sweat just went down. He hasn't been practicing, right? Brandon Graham, again, I'm a Bulls fan as well. Brandon Graham, one thing with Brandon Graham, and the thing that he's proven is that he's proven to have the clutch gene. During his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, there were so many times where he got sacks on the quarterback when the team needed it the most. And I wouldn't be mad at the Bears betting on something like that. Like, again, I know for many Bears fans, all they think about, like the dude with the dog profile that I stopped from leaving comments on the channel because he was such an idiot. Everybody's just the Bears, the defensive line. But I do think when you look at it this one, right? This guy played 15% of the defensive snaps. He's a really good situational pass runner. He has good mentorship as well, which you need some of that on this team. This guy has 2 Super Bowl rings. He understands how to play in big pressure situations. He could be a veteran voice in the locker room you can never have too many veteran voices that have experience and history of winning. You just can't have too many of that. He's somebody who can mentor Austin Booker if need be, Jordan Vandenberg, right? The other young defenders. I just talked about Shamar Turner, stuff like that, right? The Bears don't need right now to chase a franchise edge. They don't need that. They don't have the space, and it's probably not happening despite what some Bears fans want to see. But I do think the things that could make the Bears not interested in him is the age, is the limited workload. I mean, if you're only talking about paying a player 15% of the snaps, could that just go to developing Shamar Turner? Should that just go to getting your most out of your contract for Diode and Yingbo? Should it go to that thing, right? Younger players do need reps. But I think this is the difference, that these are the type of moves that a team that really feels like they're a Super Bowl contender makes, and one that's not necessarily as focused on development. I still think this Bears team, very much so, is still focused a lot of ways on the development of their young pieces. That's why you didn't see them go out and sign a big-time edge or spend a lot of money on an edge. That's why you didn't see that, right? But it is noted that Philly still remains his most likely landing spot because that's where he spent his entire career right now. So, we'll see. Overall, I'm not mad at the Bears keeping their eyes open, head on a swivel for any moves that can add depth. It's something that Ryan Poles has done. You use a preseason game or two, and then you may make some decisions. You may go out and get this year's versions of Yannick Ngakoue. You may go out and do something like that. And, I do think you have a better, younger base if you do something like that. And I'm not necessarily mad at it. But let me know what you guys think on that down below, man. Make sure you guys sound off in the comment section on all the topics that we covered down today. What do you think about the potential return early of Ozzy Trapilo, Jordan Vandenberg practicing with the first-team defense more consistently and giving the first-team offensive line some work? Caleb Williams and his growth that he's shown as a quarterback. Let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearCentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, and that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.